Nebuchadnezzar, the king, to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied to you. I thought it good to declare the signs and wonders that the Most High God has worked for me. How great are his signs, and how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts on my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore I issued a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known to me the interpretation of the dream. Then the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers came in, and I told them the dream, but they did not make known to me its interpretation. But at last Daniel came before me. His name is Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God. In him is the spirit of the holy God. And I told the dream before him, saying, Belteshazzar, chief of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy God is in you, and no secret troubles you. Explain to me the visions of my dream that I have seen and its interpretation. These were the visions of my head while on my bed. I was looking, and behold, a tree in the midst of the earth, and its height was great. The tree grew and became strong. Its height reached to the heavens, and it could be seen to the end of the earth. Its leaves were lovely, its fruit abundant, and in it was food for all. The beasts of the field found shade under it. The birds of the heavens dwelt in its branches, and all flesh was fed from it. All flesh was fed from it. I saw the visions of my head while on my bed, and there was a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven. He cried aloud and said thus, chop down the tree and cut off its branches. Strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts get out from under it, and the birds from its branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump and roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze. In the tender grass of the field, let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let him graze with the beasts on the grass of the earth. And let his heart be changed from that of a man, and let it be given the heart of a beast, and let 7 times pass over him. This decision is by the decree of the watchers, and the sentence by the word of the holy ones, in order that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, gives it to whomever he will, and sets over it the lowest of men. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now you, Belteshazzar, declare its interpretation, since all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known to me the interpretation, but you are able, for the spirit of the holy God is in you. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was astonished for a time, and his thoughts troubled him. So the king spoke and said, Belteshazzar, do not let the dream or its interpretation trouble you. Belteshazzar answered and said, my lord, may the dream concern those who hate you, and its interpretation concern your enemies. The tree that you saw, which grew and became strong, whose height reached to the heavens, and which could be seen by all the earth, whose leaves were lovely, and its fruit abundant, in which was food for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and whose branches the birds of the heaven had their home. It is you, O king, who have grown strong and become strong. For your greatness has grown and reaches to the heavens, and your dominion to the end of the earth. And inasmuch as the king saw a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven, and saying, chop down the tree and destroy it, but leave its stump and roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven. And let him graze with the beasts of the field till 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree that the Most High, which has come upon my lord the king. They shall drive you from men. Your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make you eat grass like oxen. They shall wet you with the dew of heaven, and 7 times shall pass over you till you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he chooses. And inasmuch as they gave the command to leave the stump and roots of the tree, your kingdom shall be assured to you after you come to know that heaven rules. Therefore, O king, let my advice be acceptable to you. Break off your sins by being righteous, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor. Perhaps there may be a lengthening of your prosperity. All this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of the 12 months, he was walking about the royal palace of Babylon. The king spoke, saying, Is not this great Babylon, which I have built for a royal dwelling by my mighty power and for the honor of my majesty? And while the word was still in the king's mouth, a voice fell from heaven. King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken. The kingdom has departed from you, and they shall drive you from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make you eat grass like oxen. 7 times shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomever he chooses. That very hour, the word was fulfilled concerning Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven from men and ate grass like oxen. His body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hair had grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like birds' claws. At the end of the time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my understanding returned to me. And I blessed the Most High, and praised and honored him who lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing. He does according to his will in the army of heaven, and among the inhabitants of the earth, no one can restrain his hand or say to him, What have you done? At the same time, my reason returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my honor and splendor returned to me. My counselors and nobles resorted to me, and I was restored to my kingdom. An excellent majesty was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all of whose works are true, and his ways justice. And those who walk in pride, he is able to put down. What a chapter. So you have the handout, and I'll just remind you that the word watchers appears 3 times in the chapter, and in your handout, the section on the watchers, which is very interesting, starts really on page 15 and goes through 16 and 17 and 18 and 19. We're going to pick it up on 20, and we're going to pick it up on 21. As a reminder, who are the watchers? It's a term that only appears in our Bible 3 times. They're all in Daniel chapter 4, but they're throughout the first 36 chapters of 1st Enoch. And we saw, and in those pages I just mentioned to you, there was a handout from last week as well that has just 60 sometimes obvious quotes and sometimes allusions from the New Testament, or in the New Testament, from the book of Enoch. That does not mean the book of Enoch belongs in the Bible. It is so corrupted. You read one manuscript, another, they're so different. But nevertheless, there's enough in there that's so evidently quoted in the New Testament that you can't just throw it out. And it becomes essential to understand what Daniel is referring to when he uses the word watchers 3 times, and it's not used anywhere else in the Bible, but it is throughout other Second Temple Judaism in things like the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees and others. And so watchers are basically part of God's divine council in heaven, because God, as he created humanity to rule on the earth and put all things under people, so he wants to rule the earth through people, like a council, as it were, humanity ruling the earth. Likewise, he rules heaven with a council, and the watchers were part of that. And the Book of Enoch and other, first, but especially the Book of Enoch and other Second Temple material will describe most of the watchers that are described in Enoch are evil, but they're not all evil. And there's basically beings that are used by God to do things on the earth. Well, the watchers fell, and when many of them, 200 of them fell, according to the Book of Enoch. And when they did, that is the sons of God, according to Genesis chapter 6, that had relations with the women and bore the Nephilim. The Nephilim, then, when the flood kills them, and the spirits of the Nephilim, then that is who the demons are. And so that's catching you up on what that is. So the fallen watchers, the 200 that fell, 10% of them are free to roam the earth, according to Enoch. The other 190 are imprisoned, which Peter quotes from the Book of Enoch. The other 190 are imprisoned until the last days, and the Book of Revelation talks about them being released in the last days. So that's a real kind of interesting last days scenario, which evidently Jude quotes significantly, and Peter quotes significantly. So it's kind of hard to get away from. And also of interest, the Book of Daniel is the book that actually has more copies of at Qumran than any other book of the Bible, including Genesis or Exodus or Leviticus or Numbers or Deuteronomy. So it's a book that really influenced the days of people like John the Baptist, who many believe may have been part of Qumran. And so that's a little history review. Page 21 begins with chapter 4, verse 14. He cried aloud and said thus. That's the watcher, because the watcher is mentioned in verse 13. He cried aloud and said thus, chop down the tree. So in Daniel 4:14, it literally says that the watcher cries with might. In Daniel 4:14 through 17, the watcher, in my notes say angel, but it's a watcher, is the one who speaks the words. And Nebuchadnezzar is just simply telling Daniel what he heard the watcher say. Essentially, the angel or watcher is saying that Nebuchadnezzar is about to be stripped of everything. Going over to page 22. Chop down the tree. In chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. It was about an image. It represented several kingdoms. Okay, the top of it was gold. It was Babylon. And below that was silver, which was the Medes and the Persians. And below that is bronze, which is the Greeks. And then below that, there's the iron, which is the Romans. And then the clay mixed with iron is a last days empire. It's the feet. And Daniel tells the king, you are that head of gold, in Daniel 2:38. The king responds to the dream of Daniel 2 by building a statue in honor of himself. That's Daniel chapter 3. The entire statue now is made of gold. So the king has exalted himself beyond measure. We saw that the statue was 60 cubits tall and 6 cubits wide. It doesn't say, but it's reasonable to say if it's 6 cubits wide, or then it's probably also 6 cubits thick. 6, 6, 6. We saw that the stature of those dimensions would likely topple. It's so high, it's going to be heavyweight. The heaviest part of the statue, the gravity, the weight of gold is greater than that of silver, which is greater than that of bronze, which is greater than that of iron, and then clay on the bottom. So it's top heavy, and it's really tall and really thin. It's going to topple. So many have considered the possibility that the statue was actually a gold-plated tree. This tree is going to be cut down in this chapter now. The dimensions are similar to the date palms of modern Iraq, which grow to about 90 feet or 60 cubits high, and they're slim like Nebuchadnezzar's image. So in Daniel chapter 2, the dream is about a statue. In Daniel chapter 3, the king uses a gold-plated tree, probably, to represent himself. I showed when we were in Daniel chapter 3 that was actually common, to plate things with gold. So he uses a gold-plated tree to represent himself and requires everybody worship him. In Daniel chapter 4, now that tree is cut to the ground. Nebuchadnezzar requires that everyone worship a tree image of him. This is similar to Rome requiring people worship in emperor worship. This is similar to what the Antichrist 666 will do, exalting himself above all gods. Daniel 11:36, then the king shall do according to his own will, and he shall exalt and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak blasphemies against God, the God of gods, and shall prosper till the wrath has been accomplished, for what has been determined shall be done. So Nebuchadnezzar has a tremendous problem with pride. He wouldn't admit any weakness in himself. He wasn't willing to admit that his kingdom would ever fall, and so essentially God tells the king, you better remember the bottom of the statue has clay in the feet, weak feet. You, king, have feet of clay. And I'm going to turn you into a stump with a band of iron and bronze. And the two metals which the bottom of the statue, they are what? They are iron and bronze. So the bottom metals are now going to be the band that's going to hold the tree together. He's essentially saying, king, you're not going to last forever. You might be the head of gold, but do not forget the silver, the bronze, and the iron kingdoms that will follow you. Because of your pride, I will give you a foretaste of your demise. Lower your eyes, king. Look at the bottom of the statue. At the bottom of the stump, the message is clear. Let him who thinks he stands take heed, lest he fall. Page 23. Scatter the fruit. Let the beast get out from under it, and the birds of the air from its branches. So those under the king's dominion now are going to be released from the king's oversight. Nebuchadnezzar is about to be cut down to size. He will be alive, but will become completely ineffective. The metal bands also seem to suggest something else. Jerome was an early church father, born in 347 AD, died 419 or 420 AD. So Jerome said that this describes someone being reduced to an animal-like existence. Restraint by a metal ring is more likely part of that description. Jerome compares it with the chaining of a madman than an aspect of tree culture. In other words, it's more likely controlling the madman than some kind of tree issue here, which Jerome is saying. So some scholars who say that the metal bands are a symbolic way of preserving the tree, since Nebuchadnezzar is going to be restored. But there is a problem with that way of thinking. That is that the metal bands would not preserve the stump would still rot. So that's probably not a good answer for what it means. 4:15, leave the stump and its roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze. The bands are made of iron and bronze, which are the bottom two metals of the statue in Daniel 2. So the stump may represent then the end of the age of the Gentiles. Gold, Babylon; silver, Medes and Persian; bronze, Greece; iron legs, the unnamed kingdom, which we can pretty well establish as Rome; and then the iron mixed with clay, this last days kingdom. So we get this bronze and iron, last days kingdoms. Art Scroll says that the phrase, he shall be bound with a bond of iron, it says the tree is here abruptly metamorphosed into a person, as if the dream were interpreting itself by identifying the dream as a person who, having gone berserk, must be bound with chains. In Daniel 4:16, let his heart be changed from that of a man, let him be given the heart of a beast. So again, the watcher is speaking this. The king is going to become like the rest of nature that the king himself has ruled over. In the creation story, humanity is given dominion over creation. And the king is now going to be relegated to the status of the beasts that all of humanity was created to rule over. Genesis 1:26. Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on earth. Romans 1:22, professing to be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man and birds and four-footed animals and creeping things. And what we really have here now in Nebuchadnezzar's life is an illustration of Jonah 2:8, where it says, those who regard worthless idols forsake their own mercy. And that is what's happening now to Nebuchadnezzar. On page 24, let 7 times pass over him. So this judgment then is not going to be permanent. 7 times. Most commonly, it is understood to mean 7 years. In fact, that is how the Septuagint records it. We looked at those extra 70 verses from Daniel chapter 3 that are from the Septuagint. Well, that's how the Septuagint, it has differences between the Greek Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, and there are differences besides when you have those extended editions from the Apocrypha. And in Daniel 4:13, the Septuagint says, and let his body be changed by the dew of heaven for the worst, and for 7 years let him be grazing along with them. So the Septuagint, or 2nd century BC, translates this 7 times as meaning 7 years. Rashi, who is born in 1040 AD, says that these 7 years relate to the fact that Solomon took 7 years to build the temple. So he destroyed the temple, Nebuchadnezzar, so he will endure 7 years of judgment. The NIV Study Bible has a note on 416 which explains that 7 signifies completeness. And then the NIV Bible, not the Study Bible, just all NIV Bibles, have a text note that say that the word times referred to a given season of the year. So in other words, if you're going to say 7 times, it'd be like saying the first Christmas, the second Christmas, the third Christmas. That's 3 seasons, right? That's three times. Or if you want to say, Rosh Hashanah, then you'd have three years in a row like that. So that's the idea there. Now, the number 7 is going to be a significant marker of time in Daniel chapter 9. If we understand that the number 7 in Daniel 9 refers to years, which is going to be very evident when we get to Daniel 9, it's going to be exceedingly evident that it means years, 7 years, okay, in Daniel 9. And if we understand that, then Daniel 4:16 can be seen to be indicating that Nebuchadnezzar is in for a state of discipline that will last 7 years. Going over to page 25. Additionally, on multiple occasions, Daniel will use the term time or times to refer to a period of 7 years. And this is important because there are a number of key verses in Daniel where we will use this key to understand some important end-time prophecies. Time, times, and a half a time. Okay, time 1, times 2, and a half a time, you now have 3.5. The prophetic picture of Daniel 4, Nebuchadnezzar will go through 7 years of being nothing more than a stump. But now remember the image of chapter 2. It represents the empires of the Gentile age, which are Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, and the revived Roman Empire. Also, with regard to eschatology, there's going to be a 7-year period during which the Gentile world will be reduced to a stump because God will complete his promise to the Jews. In fact, if you go through the first 4 judgments, sealed judgments of Revelation, you will find that just the 4th seal, just the 4th, will kill a quarter of the planet. The one nation won't die is Israel. Assume that there are 8 billion people on the planet. Just the 4th judgment will kill 2 billion people. Okay? The Gentile world will be reduced to a stump while God completes his promise to Israel. That's really strong. Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead to page 26. This decision is by the decree of the watchers, and the sentence by the word of the holy ones, in order that the living may know that the Most High rules of the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomever he will, and sets over it the lowest of men. So in Daniel 4:13 and 23, a single watcher who came down from heaven to the earth was seen by the king. In verse 17 here, there is a plurality of watchers. It's more than one. Watchers make decisions that have the force of a decree. And then in verse 23, that single watcher who came down is the one giving the order to chop the tree down. The tree is Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, verse 17, we'll just jump down to there. In Daniel 4:17, that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he will. Okay, the purpose of Daniel chapter 4, as of the preceding chapter, is to teach that the God of Israel is the God of the whole universe, and that the temporal power and the greatness of all nations and all monarchs are subject to his will. So Daniel 4:17 is God's way of saying, I am the one who raises up one kingdom and puts down another. I am the one who raised up the Jews. I am the one who put them down, Nebuchadnezzar. You destroyed the temple. I raise up the Gentiles. I put them down. I raised you up, Nebuchadnezzar, and I will put you down. Psalm 75, verses 6 and 7. Exaltation comes neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south, but God is judge. He puts down one and exalts the other. I remember during my ordination interview, I was asked if I believed in predestination. And I didn't even realize, but it just came out of my mouth. I said, do I believe, in other words, do I believe that certain people are predestined to be saved and other individuals are predestined to be damned? I said, no, on an individual basis, I do not believe in predestination. But on a global scale, I most certainly do believe that the Jewish people are predestined, the nation. Okay? We died by the untold numbers in the wilderness, all but Joshua and Caleb. But the nation cannot lose its salvation. Individuals can. Individuals in the church can. The church cannot lose its salvation, but individuals can. Israel, individuals can, but the nation of Israel cannot. And so all Israel will be saved. And that's Romans 11:26 on page 27. Verse 17, that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he will and sets over it the lowest of men. God's discipline was merely to punish Nebuchadnezzar, but that he and others might learn I don't know why I missed the word not, was not merely to punish Nebuchadnezzar, but that he and others might learn a valuable two-part lesson. The first part of the lesson is that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of men and gives it to whomever he wills. But the second part of the lesson is that he will set over it the lowest of men. And the word lowliest does not mean unworthy. It means the most humble, which is really interesting. So, it's 5:10. And I have the handout ready to give out, but I think it's best if I don't, because it's 5:10, right? And I can hear people. So you don't want to miss the next class. We are going to hit the second half of Daniel verses 19 through 37. It'll be a whole lot easier than the first half because you already know what the watchers are, and we've already talked about the watchers. But what we will see in the second half is what really happened to King Nebuchadnezzar, like really, actually medically, and, how does he get restored? And what does this mean for us as humans? Because God actually does discipline people. And so that's Daniel, the second half of this chapter.